Hello friends, it is another day, another dawn has passed and E3 still continues. I've had not enough sleep at all. My eyes are heavy under the weight of video games. So last night was Ubisoft's and PlayStation's conference. This video will be about PlayStation's conference, a conference that happened at 2 AM in the morning. Today feels like Thursday for me because I've not slept properly. So PlayStation, what needed to happen for them in this conference? Well, they were already riding on a high from last year. One of my predictions was that Sucker Punch's new game should be at this conference, and maybe that they should announce an early release date for Days Gone. Other than that, more details on what happened last year. So more details from Spider-Man, more details from God of War. They've got a strong lineup in the next 12 months or so. So just a little bit more detail on that. Before the conference, though, they've done a weird thing this year, Sony. They've been drip-feeding content outside of their conference. So in their live stream running up to the media briefing itself, they showed off things like Superhot VR, Undertale for PlayStation 4 and Vita. They've also shown off things like Knack 2, a game called Extinction, things that weren't in the conference for some unknown reason, but are still newsworthy things. But I'm going to be focusing on the conference, because that's the thing that matters the most. This is what this is. These are raw reactions to the conferences with nothing but my notes in front of me. Notes that I can barely fucking read, because apparently I didn't learn how to write in school. So Sony kicked off their PlayStation conference with Uncharted DLC, specifically Uncharted The Lost Legacy. We saw more from whatever that DLC is going to be, and what it's going to have in store for us, the kind of twists and turns that the narrative is going to be taking. It's going to follow Chloe Fraser, character that was in the franchise since Uncharted 2. Yeah, Uncharted 2. It's quite a beloved character, quite suave, quite smarmy, very sarcastic. You know, she is a fan favourite, and you know, this trailer just showed us more of what is to come for that DLC. There wasn't really a hell of a lot more in there. I thought, personally, it was a little bit of a weak start for Sony. I think they needed to come out with something a little more stronger than that. After that, they showed another piece of DLC for another one of their giant games, especially one of their giant games this year, Horizon Zero Dawn. The DLC is going to be called The Frozen Wilds, and it's coming this year? This June? What the hell does that word say? Okay, so it either says in my notes, coming this June, I doubt it, or this year. Let me find out. It says this year. It's supposed to launch this year. And somehow I made the word year look like the word June. Anyway, it is story-based DLC. It's about it looks like a new area. It's a more wintry kind of landscape in the mountains. The tagline that Aloy says in the trailer is, "I'm here for the mountain." Whatever that means, there's obviously some kind of importance around that specific feature in this area. So it is going to be a new area by all accounts, and presumably some new robots in there. There was a hint at a monster in front of the mountain or something along those lines. So after kicking off the conference with 2 different DLC packages, we moved on to a full game this time around, and more from Days Gone. Days Gone, which I predicted, remember, would have a release date, and it didn't. There was no release date for Days Gone. It just said 2018 that it's coming out, which is a shame. I thought it would be ready a little sooner than that, but I'm no game developer. I do not know the ins and outs as much as I pretend to. So we had a pretty substantial gameplay segment from Days Gone, and from what I could take away from it, it kind of looks like Horizon Zero Dawn because of that third-person perspective, because of the open wilderness that it's in, and the animations and the stealth elements, hiding in tall grass. It looked and felt to me kind of like Horizon Zero Dawn, like with zombies. But it looks interesting. So the main character, I can't remember his name, I didn't know if it came up. The main character jumps on a motorbike. You're looking for another character that's been taken or just missing. You're driving through this wilderness. There was a zombie wolf that chased the motorbike. There was a trap in the road that fucked you up. And then you come across the guy's motorbike. There is a tracking ability that isn't too far removed from Horizon Zero Dawn. The character then follows the tracks that he identifies. Comes across a ton of zombies, and it is very, very impressive how many zombies they can have on screen in one go. It is a terrifying horde, and it's almost an intelligent horde because it reacts to your influence on the environment as well. And that's another thing that I took away from this gameplay trailer. The setting of the traps and the using of the environment seemed to be very open and gave you a lot of agency in being able to plan your tactics for an assault on enemies, using the zombies, or the freakers as they're known in the game, to your advantage. I mean, yeah, it looked fine, but I can't say that I am as excited for this as I was for Horizon Zero Dawn or any other new IP that Sony's got coming. Purely because I feel like this genre is overdone at this point, and we've seen enough zombie-style video games in the past decade or so that we've kind of had our fill. Whether or not Days Gone can do something different with the genre remains to be seen. Dying Light managed to do something different. Hopefully this will be a game in the same ilk, but from what we've seen so far, I cannot say that. There was a bear, there was a zombie bear in it as well. It was covered in barbed wire. That looked problematic. Anyway, continuing on, Sean Layden, the guy presenting the entire thing, came back on stage after his little stint at the beginning. Very short, very sweet, looking dapper as usual. Didn't have much to say of any value, really. It's just, hey, did you like those games? Great, now here's some more. After Sean disappeared off the stage, we saw Monster Hunter for the PlayStation 4. Yes, Monster Hunter. Long requested game for this generation. It's going to be called Monster Hunter World. There's a crazy, crazy sense of scale in the whole thing. The horrible looking dino critters that you are there to hunt look like they are there to cause you some real problem. There was some great animation on those monsters as well. Yeah, Monster Hunter, PS4. Next they showed something from Japan Studio, developed by Bluepoint. Bluepoint, which I believe are kind of a dedicated remaster studio, which makes sense considering they showed off Shadow of the Colossus, that really old game from the PS2 that people love. And it seems like they're remaking it or remastering it, bringing it into this generation of console, updating all the visuals, which makes perfect sense. It is a game that has got quite a cult following, has got quite a large fan base. It's supposedly out in 2018. I would expect them to hit that target, considering the game's it's already there. The game already exists. You've just got to make it look better. So yeah, that'll be interesting when we get our hands on that one. After the Shadow of the Colossus remaster, we saw Marvel vs. Capcom Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and it's hard to give a shit about this. I've never really been into Marvel vs. Capcom. It's out September 19th. There's a demo out for it now on the PlayStation Store. It's a story demo, I think, with the words used. But yeah, I can't give a shit. I can't say anything more about Marvel vs. Capcom. I don't know enough. Speaking of things that I can't be asked to talk about, Call of Duty World War II. We saw more of that. It was a pretty good gameplay trailer, getting into the essence of how they're translating World War II into this new game. It does look like Call of Duties of old, seeming very, very similar to the likes of Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty Big Red 1, and Call of Duty 3. I got that same kind of feeling from watching the trailer that I had playing those games way, way back when, but, you know, rose-tinted spectacles and all that. There's not a lot else to be said about it. It's another first-person shooter, innit? It's what it is. It's not gonna set the world on fire. So after Call of Duty World War II, we had quite a lengthy little VR section. A lot of VR stuff. Surprisingly, Skyrim VR turned up. I thought, where the fuck did that come from? It wasn't mentioned in Bethesda's little VR section. I wonder if it will be in the same vein as Fallout 4. But then again, this is for the PSVR, and I don't know how well the VR can run things like a full version of Skyrim in VR or a full version of Fallout 4 in VR. It certainly didn't look like the full version. It looked like something tailor-made, but with the Skyrim label. I don't know, we'll have to see how that one pans out. I don't have a lot of faith in that, though. Another VR experience we saw was called Star Child. Pretty impressed with this one, because it's a genre we see a lot, this kind of Metroidvania platforming thing. And it is a long, popular genre, but using the VR to give it a different perspective. It's not using the VR as a gimmick or as a way to be immersed in the game, but it's using VR to give a new perspective on a genre that we're very used to, and I can appreciate that. I can appreciate kind of outside-the-box thinking with VR, not necessarily making you the centre of the experience, but giving you a different outsider's perspective on an environment or on a game. Next, they showed The Inpatient from Supermassive, who are the development team responsible for Until Dawn. This is a first-person horror game based in an asylum, because why not? That is becoming the common setting for horror games now, asylums. But Supermassive understand horror. They proved that with Until Dawn, so I've got every confidence in them that they can prove themselves once again in VR, telling a story such as this. And then, oh fucking Christ, yeah, this piece of shit. So you know when Final Fantasy 15 released, they promised there was going to be some kind of VR version. Well, we now know what that VR version is going to be. It is going to be Final Fantasy 15 Monster of the Deep. Basically, it's a fishing game. It's a fishing game set in the world of Final Fantasy. Yeah. Wow. I can't say anything more about that. The fifth VR experience we saw, again from Supermassive, was something called Bravo Team. Seems a game that will no doubt be using that VR aim controller that came out with Farpoint earlier in the year. And it seems to follow a SWAT team of some description, showed off some of the shooting. Yeah, more shooting in VR, that's exactly what we need. And then we had some artsy jumping into a storybook type game called Moss, where you follow the adventures of a cute mouse. Very, very Disney kind of feel to it. I thought that was a good showing for VR. They've got 6 games there in the conference, plus they've got other things on the way like Superhot VR, and I think they're doing No More Heroes VR as well, so it certainly isn't a piece of hardware that PlayStation is considering dead yet, which is good, but I will hold back on that confidence for now. So after the VR little showcase, we saw more of God of War, and from what the trailer showed and what the gameplay looks like, it is still quintessential God of War. There is a selection of different weapons you can use with different tactics behind those weapons. There is a variety of beasts that you need to get through, and it seems like they're still relying on the combo-heavy combat in that third-person perspective that the God of War franchise perfected, in a way. This new direction, though, it kind of reinvents the franchise, makes it feel a little bit more grown up, a little bit more mature than the previous games, especially with this new narrative sense that they're taking, where you've got your young son under your wing, or I'm assuming is your son. I don't think it is, because in the canon, Kratos killed his family, but I don't know if there's someone he adopts, someone he fathers again, but there is more of a narrative here. There's more of a narrative in this trailer, in fact, than there is in the past, in all of the previous games combined. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to see Kratos evolving into something else, and Santa Monica trying to make God of War relevant now, rather than sticking to a tried and tested formula. It's good that they are willing to take something that is, beloved by a lot of people, including me, and shake it up a little bit. I enjoy that. And the giant bosses are back too. There's a horrible little snake monster at the end of it, which looked like I wanted to chop its head off. So hopefully we'll be removing the limbs of giant beasts when it comes out in early 2018, and I seriously doubt that is gonna stick. Early 2018, mate, just after Christmas. I really don't think so. Next, we had Detroit Become Human. You know, that David Cage Quantic Dream game, the sci-fi robot revolution. It looks like it could be interesting. This trailer kind of focused on how choice can influence how the story unfolds. It's something that Quantic Dream have been trying to do with their games in Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls for a little while now. And from what the trailers are showing, it does look promising, but whether or not Quantic can deliver this time around, they kind of hit a bump in the road with Beyond Two Souls, and they were praised quite a bit for Heavy Rain previously, but they've not quite fulfilled their aim yet in terms of what they want to do with video games. Will Detroit be that fulfillment? Who knows? We will wait and see. There was no specific date for it, though. Again, this was just another 2018 game. Then we saw some more of Destiny 2, which basically carried on from what we saw in the reveal. More of the same. We've already seen most of it. There's nothing all that new and noteworthy coming from that trailer. But there is exclusive content with PlayStation. I think that's the only reason, really, that Destiny appeared in the PlayStation conference, is to reiterate their business together, their partnership. And that's fine, but honestly, I'm not one that cares all that much about Destiny. So do what you fucking want, mate. I don't care. And then, finally, rounding out the show, closing it out after just an hour, so quite a short one for PlayStation this time around, just an hour long. But closing out the show was Spider-Man from Insomniac. And holy mother of God, this game looks great. It looks like the Arkham Asylum of Spider-Man. They really seem to have cracked the look and the feel of what a Spider-Man game should be. So props to Insomniac for that. We saw a big chunk of gameplay. We saw some stealth. We saw some melee action. There was a big use of the environment in that melee action as well. It looks to play a big part in the game, being able to interact and use objects in the environment to defeat enemies. It really captured the essence of what Spider-Man is and how cheeky the character is, and how Spider-Man relies on improvisation of his environment to, come across as a superhero. We also saw some city traversal. There was a chase of a helicopter through the city. And Insomniac did come out and say that the web swinging is completely physics-based and the webs do attach to buildings, which is exactly what we want. Exactly what we want. The trailer was also pretty heavy on the action, showing what the set pieces look like and how they're controlled with QuickTime events, which is, it's fine in my case. It's better than watching just a cutscene. At least you're interacting in some way. I've seen some criticism of it that it is a little heavy on it, but I don't know how you're going to be able to get such complex set pieces to work without those QuickTime events if you want to have the player involved in them. Either way, really, really impressed by how it looks. It kind of did live up to the trailer that dropped last year. When the trailer dropped last year for Spider-Man, it looked almost too good to be true, but now we've seen this gameplay from Insomniac. It seems like they're nailing it. No specific date, again, just 2018. By far my favourite thing of this conference probably my favourite showing of all the E3 conferences was Spider-Man. I was blown away by it, genuinely blown away by it. And then that was it. That was the end of the show. It was pretty short, to be honest. There was no real surprises. All it kind of was a fulfillment on the promises they'd made last year. Like I said at the beginning, what they needed to do was give more detail on what was happening with those games. They did that. I don't think they gave enough. I think I would have loved some more specific dates for the likes of Days Gone. I find it hard to believe that Days Gone isn't near completion, to be honest. I mean, that's 7 years in the making from Ben's last game. You'd think they'd have some sort of time frame for it, but at least Sony is allowing them a little bit of leeway and the potential of a delay should it be needed by just saying it's coming in 2018. But yeah, this conference kind of echoed a theme that has been running throughout all of this year's E3 conferences. It's just been, here's the games. There's no party piece to be shown off. There's no agenda to be fulfilled. There's less business in this year's E3 conferences. It's more focused towards the players than the investors this time around, I feel. And just by showing off the games, I think they are speaking to the audience that they know is watching more than most, which is gamers, and that's great. But there were nothing major happened in the conference. They were simply building upon the foundations which they laid last year, which isn't a bad thing, but it also doesn't give me any reason to be all that excited for the conference. There was no moment of hype. There was no moment of, oh my god, look at this, like there was last year. And I know that is a hard thing to live up to, but I don't think they fucked up here. It wasn't a fuck up. It was far from a fuck up. It was a very strong showing of games. But after last year, they needed to carry on that momentum, and I feel like this was a small bit of a misstep, but not too hindering on what they're trying to achieve here. They've got enough games announced. They've got enough games coming. They've showed enough of those games off to its potential audience. Plus, remember, they've got PSX later on in the year in December, November time, so no doubt there will be something else there. So yeah, I wouldn't put them at the top of the food chain in terms of how they performed. I wouldn't call this my favourite conference of this year's E3. It just wasn't up there. It didn't have what I wanted from it. I wasn't overly impressed by what they had. I wasn't surprised by what they had. The only thing that really caught me off guard was how good Spider-Man looks. And yeah, that's it really. That's all you need to know. So that's my thoughts on PlayStation's conference. So let me know what you thought about PlayStation's conference, down in the comments if you want, or over on Twitter. I'll be there at DarylDoes. I do have some more videos coming today and tomorrow as well. I'll have my reaction for Ubisoft's conference coming up not long after you've seen this one, hopefully. Today's Nintendo Spotlight. I'll be watching that and I'll be reacting to that for tomorrow. So you'll see my opinion on whatever bullshit Nintendo are bringing out tomorrow. Thursday, I'm hoping to squeeze in some kind of gameplay. I was thinking maybe the Marvel vs. Capcom demo that dropped. I don't know. I'll have a scout around. I might consider starting to play The Evil Within. I don't know. That makes my heart flutter a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Alright, thanks for listening, and I will speak to you in a couple of hours, you bunch of gaming nerds.